Greetings everyone and welcome back to another video. The Emerald Chain Intel Juggernaut blog has finally dropped, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. It is a very imposing and impressive looking ship. Whenever I do these blog coverage videos, I always put the link in the description, so if you want to watch the video they have here, and I recommend it because they did a really great job with this one, you could just click the link and then watch it on the blog post itself. But we got the Emerald Chain Lockbox alongside Star Trek Online's 12th anniversary event. The flagship of the deadly new enemy will soon be available for players to pilot as their own. This mighty vessel looms over all who would dare approach it from a position of authority and malice. And I don't even know if you can see it here, they added some new technology, and it talks about it a little bit more. We're going to read it here in a second, where they added cannons that will track your enemy. So it's a completely new thing they invented for this ship. Maybe we'll see it on future ships like C-Store ships and other ships that are more accessible, but at least for the time being, this is something new being added to the game in addition to the ship, so it's new technology. Implementing such an enormous starship in Star Trek Online, which this should be the largest ship in the game now, is not without significant technical challenges. In addition to necessitating a rescale, our version is much smaller than the canon reference. We have developed special technology that allows the many cannon enhancements lining the vessel's hull to track your primary target. We are very excited to see these new developments in action and proud of the work that we were able to accomplish to bring this new feature to our players. So I think that's pretty neat. Even if you don't end up getting this ship, it's something to potentially look forward to in the future. And let's go ahead and take a look at the stats on the ship. It is, of course, an Intel Juggernaut, which means it is an Intel primary ship. And we have a Tier 6, of course, hull modifier. Oh my goodness, 1.65. That is crazy high. When I did the video for the Legendary Ross, which is the Legendary Galaxy, I made special effort to point out that the hull modifier on that ship was 1.55 and therefore very high. And this has a 1.65, absolutely dwarfing it and basically every other ship in the game. So that's really, really crazy. If you're looking to do shenanigans with a high hull modifier, this is going to be the ship now. And it doesn't give up much for it either. You still get a shield modifier over 1, barely over 1, admittedly 1.05, but that's pretty crazy stats right there. 4-4 weapon layout, 3 device slots. It has a Lieutenant Tactical, a Commander Tactical Intel, an Ensign Engineering, a Lieutenant Commander Science, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal Command. This is not optimal for what meta players are looking for. Otherwise, it would have the Command and Intel seats flopped around, but it's not bad either. There's a lot of ships like this: Intel Primary, Lieutenant Commander Command Secondary, and they're all good ships. So this would make a pretty good ship. 4-4 is good right now. Intel is good. Command is good. It's not going to beat other ships, like even the Fleet Malachowski, which is, as far as I know, still the top parsing ship. Got to have that Command Primary if you want to be in the very highest tier, but still good nonetheless. 5 tactical, 2 engineering, 4 for science. And it doesn't have too much engineering seating. The Lieutenant Commander Science will be welcome these days. It has 10 for weapons, 10 for aux, 35 inertia, a turn rate of 5, which is very, very slow to turn. There are ways to fix it, but it is a downside for this ship, no matter what kind of build you do with it. And then, of course, it has the Juggernaut Mastery Package, which we don't see too often. You get crit chance, crit severity, both great. Hull regeneration, which is also good if you're hull tanking. Enhanced weapon systems is all damage, so it's a very nice mastery package. And then we have a new starship trait, which, spoiler alert, I think is pure garbage. We're going to talk about it in more detail in a moment. But let's first talk about the console. Console universal programmable matter projectors. Activating this console sends programmable matter streaming forth along carefully shepherded lines of magnetic force, and then blah, blah, blah. It turns into some tentacles or whatever. I think it'll be pretty neat to watch the visuals on, though. It's going to be a cool looking console to use. It gives you some Cat 1 cannon damage and exotic particle generator as passives, so probably not going to use it for the passives because it's Cat 1. Let's talk about the trait, Lash of the Chain. While this trait is slotted, using Cannon Rapid Fire or Cannon Scatter Volley negates the shared 15-second cooldown time of those abilities. This effect can occur once every 45 seconds. Well, first of all, what does this mean? What does it actually do? Well, if you have an ability, and I recommend if you don't normally use the Stow Wiki, to use the Stow Wiki because it's an amazing resource. And if you look up any ability in the game, which I do regularly, even for abilities where I already know, if I have any doubt, I think to myself, is that right? Do I remember it right? I'll look it up. It's a great resource. So if you look up an ability, it's going to have the cooldown. That's the regular old cooldown that you would have to wait if you had no cooldown reduction or anything like that. If you just use the ability, that's how long you'd have to wait to use it again. Then it has something called the duplicate ability cooldown. What does that mean? That means if you have 2 copies of the same ability on your ship, like let's say Cannon Rapid Fire 1 and Cannon Rapid Fire 2, then if you activate Cannon Rapid Fire 1, then the other one will get set to the duplicate cooldown, which in the case of cannon firing modes like rapid fire and scatter volley is 15 seconds. They have a regular old everyday cooldown of 30 seconds and a duplicate of 15. The duplicate also tells you what the minimum cooldown is that you can achieve with cooldown reduction. So if you put lots and lots of cooldown reduction on your ship, it will never go below the duplicate cooldown. So it serves 2 purposes. It tells you what it is if you have more than one version on your ship, but it also tells you what the minimum is using cooldown reduction. Why does that matter? It matters because of uptime. So one of the things you might have noticed if you watch some of my other videos is that every firing mode, all the energy weapon ones, have an extender trait. So they only last for 10 seconds. They have a cooldown of 30 seconds with a duplicate of 15. Fire at will is the exception. It has a duplicate of 20. They changed it, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about beams, so we don't have to worry about that right now. But they all have an extender trait that extends them by 4 or 5 seconds so that you can have basically 100% uptime. If you either run 2 copies of the ability or you run a lot of cooldown reduction, which is the preferred method, you will be able to trigger it every 15 seconds. It lasts for 10 seconds, just baseline, and then your extender trait, Starship trait, brings it up the rest of the way to 15 seconds or 14 seconds, depending on the trait. So you're going to get basically 100% uptime. What this is saying is that you will be able to use the other one. Now, normally there's a lockout, so we're finally coming full circle here. I had to explain all that before we could get here. Some abilities are paired together in a way that you can only use one at a time. So if you're using Cannon Rapid Fire, you can't also use Cannon Scatter Volley. Same thing goes for Torpedo Spread and Torpedo High Yield. There are ways to get around it, like Entwined Tactical Matrices, for example, which I assume will work with this trait as well. I assume that if you have a Torpedo Spread, that it will give you a rapid fire. But this trait has an internal cooldown of 45 seconds. So what it's saying is, if you activate Cannon Rapid Fire, normally it would prevent you from using Scatter Volley until the duplicate cooldown was finished. But if you have this trait slotted, you won't have to wait. You could activate Cannon Rapid Fire and then immediately activate Scatter Volley, or vice versa. That sounds really good, but you can only do that once every 45 seconds. And remember, the uptime without a Starship trait is only 10 seconds. So let's say you have a rapid fire build as an example. You have rapid fire 3 on your ship. You want to put Scatter Volley on as well to take advantage of this trait. Well, you can only have one commander power, so it's going to have to be Cannon Scatter Volley rank 2 or lower, so you're already taking a loss there. You already have to use more than one bridge officer slot, and you're already having to use a lower rank of your other cannon ability. You have to replace one of the Starship traits you are already using to make room for this. You hit rapid fire every 15 seconds. You have go for the kill on, so it's bringing you up to 15 seconds. So rapid fire is basically on all the time. And then once every 45 seconds, you get 10 seconds of rapid fire. Is that good? No, it's not good at all. You have a huge footprint. You have to take up an extra bridge officer slot. You have to take up an extra starship trait slot, which is extremely valuable. And then you're only getting 10 seconds of uptime every 45 seconds. That is terrible. What would be an even worse idea is to put on both extender traits. So now you're using 3 starship traits just to juggle all this. And then you could get 15 seconds of uptime every 45 seconds. Best case scenario, you go all out, you make maximum amount of room on your build for it. Your second firing mode is a lower rank than the highest rank, and it only has an uptime of 1/3. That is awful. Entwined tactical matrices, if you have torpedo spread, should trigger the rapid fire for you if you're using, or a scatter volley if you're using rapid fire. But again, that's just a scatter volley 1. That's not really all that great. So, and if you're doing a rapid fire build, you're probably not using torpedo spread, but you know, I'm just pointing out here that the uptime on this is ridiculous. It has a huge opportunity cost. I think if you read it initially, your thought is, oh my God, I can use rapid fire and scatter volley at the same time. That must be amazing. I don't think it is. I think it's complete and total garbage. It's an absolute noob trap. So that's it. I know that was a lot, and hopefully I can do a more condensed version of explaining that when the review video actually comes out. Do I think this is a good addition to the game? I mean, I'm glad that they are continuing to adapt to the game and add new features, and you know, they've added this new technology for the turrets and all that. I think that's a good thing. It's a cool looking ship. I know there's people who love to have the biggest ship. There's always people who want to get the Universe or the Durgath or whatever because it's the biggest ship. So now they have a new biggest ship to chase after, probably definitely not compensating for anything. And having such a high hull modifier is going to appeal to a few folks. If you're fans of Discovery and you like the Emerald Chain, maybe it'll appeal to some of those. It's a good ship, but it's not a great ship. And I think the trait is very bad. The console is mediocre at best. So for me, this is just not a really great ship. I overall would rate this fairly lowly. And that's it. So we finally got the stats blog. That's my initial impression. And, you know, there'll be more in the actual review whenever I'm able to get that up. Maybe doing that on Tribble, of course. I'm not going to spend $200 on this ship. Thank you guys very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, as always. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.